All right, Chelsea fans, welcome back to another episode. That's right, of the London is Blue podcast, a YouTube exclusive match preview. Only because we had a packed week on the pod feed. We're talking about Leicester City. That's right, Chelsea's weekend rival, as Chelsea look to solidify their position in the top five to try to ensure that they're going to get Champions League football next season. And right now, the next opposition that stands in our way of those dreams becoming reality is the Foxes of Leicester City. So Sam is back with me, I'm at CFC Central, to talk about these teams, about our team getting ready to face off against the Foxes and our beloved Blues and what they need to do to get that job done. But maybe just even right at the top, Sam, getting into it, any immediate high-level feeling about where this Leicester City team are right now, as they are very much firmly planted in the relegation zone at the moment?
Dan, when they say rock bottom has a basement, that's exactly where Leicester are at this moment. Um, hired a new manager, waiting for a new manager bounce did not happen. Some grating worries in terms of squad, in terms of, there's no excuse basically, Dan. You can't say it's injuries. They only have two injuries. And you can't say it's the manager because the last manager was equally, at a loss in terms of what I need to do here. So having lost 11 of their last 12 games, it's genuinely looking like, the inevitable for them. So it's just a matter of salvaging a little pride before they go back down and find a way back up again. So it's a very, very good opportunity to go there, find some confidence in the league, not just from a collective perspective, but also individuals like Cole Palmer who need to get back on track. So lock in and let, you know, just do your talking on the pitch and you should be good.
So, I know that there are some thoughts around player availability. We're recording this on the Friday, releasing on the Saturday, and so we're going to miss the Enzo Maresca, maybe press commentary about player availability. Maybe the big one coming out of the midweek was Malagusto's availability, might be a question mark. We did see players like Benoit Badiashile come back into the lineup in this game. So, we are seeing maybe some players getting back healthy, becoming available. We know that there are some longer term injuries like Nico Jackson, Noni Madueke, not available for this one on the Chelsea side. Any major injuries that are potentially beneficial to Chelsea on the Leicester side, but lack of availability?
Yeah, I think both their injuries are very, very big in terms of just how important they are to the side. So Abdul Fatawu is somebody who performed exceedingly well for Leicester in the Championship, was hailed as being like this young talent who was going to make an impact in the Premier League, looked quite good against even high-level opposition. Unfortunately, he's, I think, out for the season, more or less, after an ACL injury. So he's not going to be available. And Ricardo Pereira is a PL veteran, was linked to top clubs at a point and went down to the championship, is a fullback who can play on both sides. He's also somebody who Enzo Maresca was very keen on inverting into midfield and essentially was, the Reece James kind of figure in terms of inverting into midfield and giving them that tactical option, that flexibility in the middle. And he's going to be out as well. So I think those are two key missing elements, not just from, an attacking perspective, but also from a leadership perspective, which they seem to be sorely missing.
And then as we maybe just jump into the fact that, they do have a style of play, I want to chat through that and talk about maybe what is working for them, things that have changed over the start of the season and, over the first match against them to now. Anything you want to kind of call out there?
Oh well, just the manager's changed. It still looks the same, to be
True.
honest. It still looks like, yeah, a 4-2-3-1, to be honest. And it does look worse, if I can be very honest here. At least there was, I would say, a little bit of building on Maresca's ideas in terms of, what the team was trying to do, in terms of how the personnel was used. NDD, for example, which was used a little further up. Those ideas seem to have changed. It does look a little more disjointed now. Not a little, little would be kind, but it does look like a side that's struggling to put all of it together. It looks like there are 11 individual discrete units trying to play football instead of something resembling a football team. So I would just say a lot of disorder, an extreme lack of confidence. and they really don't know where the goals are going to come from and how to stop them going in. So just a recipe for disaster.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely doesn't make you feel, if you're a Leicester fan, particularly good about the probability of them somehow just sneaking by. Either that Wolves team that is like sitting close to the bottom, but not close enough right now. 5 point difference between them and both Ipswich and Leicester, who are 18th and 19th respectively in the table. Uh, any other kind of points? Just maybe formation related, player personnel, interesting kind of things that you'd like to pull forward as things that they're doing well ish? I mean, I don't know if you can count on that fully, but yeah, I mean, when they're that bad, but I'm sure you could say one or two nice things about them.
Okay, so let's start with the bad. They're essentially the worst or second worst in the league for almost all metrics. So, for instance, they've conceded the second most goals in the league with 61. They've scored the second fewest in the league, tied on 25. They have the lowest chances created in the league, and they are second for the lowest big chances created in the league. So, essentially, very, very dire if you were to look at just metrics or even have some hope of whether there's something to build on. We mentioned the formation is essentially the same. You've got Vardy up front. You feel for him because he's obviously been almost a one club man. He's been quoted by the best clubs in the Premier League and beyond, but he's stuck through them with relegation and everything that came with it. He's scored, I think, almost one fourth of their goals this season, still on seven. The old man is just, refusing to give up and he's giving it his all, but it does look like a team that is built for, win the ball and try to break with speed. And Vardy is key to that. Somebody who loves running into space, who will give you, endless energy in terms of chasing down every long ball. And behind them, you've got quite a promising, at least on paper, set of attackers. Mavididi is a little bit senior, but Bilal El Khanous is somebody who was looked at by a lot of clubs, and Facundo Buonanotte, who's on loan from Brighton, who's also quite promising. He scored against us for Brighton, so one to watch out for. Sol Colwell, I think it was on the left-hand side by cutting in. But it's a very direct, carry-heavy kind of threat in that AMs, but that's what they try to do then. It'll be Sumare and NDD, which is their engine room, a very ball winning heavy engine room, which will try to win the ball in those midfield areas, and then they expect those four guys to cause any kind of damage, and that's essentially how the side works. If you were to go back and look at the defense, Caleb Oakley picked up a knock in one of their games, so he was on the bench for the last game. I'm not sure if he will be fit to play here, but if he is, then he will start. But if he doesn't, then it's Maresca's pairing of Yannick Vestergaard and Wout Faes, who essentially were the championship winning centre backs. One's a covering defender. It's essentially the tall Vestergaard who will, sorry, the stopper who will be just going ahead trying to win the ball in the air, and then you've got the covering defender in Faes who will sweep up, who will try to take any runners running in behind the slow Vestergaard, but neither of them has been good, to be honest. Vestergaard's a little old, legs are gone. Nico Jackson absolutely tore him to shreds when Maresca faced us in that FA Cup tie under Poch, and Wout Faes hasn't been great either. So centre back's a huge, huge issue. We were linked with the goalkeeper, Mads Hermansen, rated as quite a good goalkeeping prospect, but really hasn't had a chance to show his ball playing skills with Leicester, not even mustering enough possession. And instead, he's had to make 94 saves. So, yeah, it's been a very, very busy season for them from a shot stopping perspective. But I will say, Dan, that in terms of a good thing, they almost stole a point of Arsenal. Arsenal did not have any recognized centre forwards with Havertz out, with Jesus out. So they had to play Trossard there and only won the game when they threw Mikel Merino on. And they nicked a win against Spurs after going down in the first half to Richarlison. And both games, essentially, Leicester tried to be very compact, denied them the opportunity. And against Arsenal, it was just hoping that they have a bad day in front of goal and from set pieces. So if you have a good functioning attack and you pepper them with shots, and especially when the first goal goes in, I think then the floodgates open. So That's essentially what we should be looking at.
I mean, it does feel as if, and having watched a little bit of this, not as tragic as Southampton, but pretty close to as bad of a watch of any team in the Premier League this season. They just look like a poorly put together Lego set at times. Like it just kind of doesn't. There's not a lot of harmony in anything that they're trying to do. You mentioned a couple of things like certain players. It does feel as if they've their squad has maybe aged a little bit and it hasn't refreshed appropriately. That there are players that we've brought in like the Pedro Neto experience at 9 is going to be interesting to see if he can replicate some really good performances against this team and maybe continue his run through this month as being our guy leading the line. Are there other, of those, or are there any other weaknesses that you would just highlight for listeners and viewers on what you see as the glaring issues that Maresca and team are going to be absolutely dialed in to take advantage of?
Yeah, I think the squad building perspective does absolutely make sense to me because they have been woeful from every tactical standpoint that you can look at. They look very unstable in every phases, especially the transitions, and even basics like the spacing between lines can be so off. Their forward line tries to press, but nobody in midfield line wants to back it up because the midfielders are worried. They want to screen their defense, which they know is quite fragile, but they also want to, help figure out if they can have the press and get stuck in between. So when you look at Leicester's pressing, for example, it's just a 38-year-old Vardy and sometimes El Khanous, so one of the other forwards trying to push up and press usually three, four players, including the goalkeeper, and it just looks pointless. It looks like they're trying to win the ball without any support, and you can just waltz past the first line of press, no problem whatsoever. And essentially, when you get past those two players, then the trouble starts because then the midfielders get anxious. They try to jump, get bypassed. If they go deeper, then the spaces open up elsewhere out wide where the fullbacks can be a bit of an issue. Christensen is good, I think. On the left hand side, he's probably been one of their better players, but James Justin is also quite decent, but playing a little different role here. But the moment you're able to get to the heart of the defense, that's when it looks very, very shaky. So I would say just basics are lacking. And if you can exploit those gaps that they leave, then it's going to be a long, long afternoon, evening for them. Vestergaard, Fayas, and Okoli, all three centre backs look very unwilling to follow the centre forward, opposition centre forward, whenever he drifts or drops deep. So do that by all means. If you're able to drag any of those guys out and spin them around, you will have all kinds of joy to run it. I really wish we had Nico Jackson for this one, but Pedro Neto has been on fire a little bit, so hoping that he emulates that kind of form again and is able to coax those guys out of the backline. I think they'll do very, very well if he's able to cause a little bit of hesitation in the backline. The third point I think is key because their midfield is looks very prone during ball losses. Like I mentioned, the pressure on the pivots is quite extreme because you're essentially asking both your ball winning midfielders to carry the ball from back to front to win the ball in high areas. Then you're expecting them to screen the defense. So they're not very good at keeping the ball. And when they do lose the ball in the middle third, then look very vulnerable to quick attacks. So Brentford, for example, tore through the center a lot of the times, and they're a side that prefers the wings. So excuse me. So if you're able to offer any kind of penetration from the center, especially try to get those two ball winning midfielders to put a foot wrong, then you can get a lot of joy in those central areas. And the last will probably put it on the manager. I don't think Van Nistelrooy helped himself in any manner whatsoever. He's not really inspiring confidence in his players. He sidelined Bonanote for a bit, like wasn't really using him despite, Bonanote being a very, very good player on loan. Like, for example, he played 36 minutes against Brentford, played 6 against Arsenal, played 10 against Manchester United, 14 against Tottenham, 20 against Fulham. And before that, under the last manager, he played pretty much like in and out. And he had a run of like 5, 6 games where he scored or assisted almost every game. So probably not helping himself in terms of assessing what his options are and which players could help him out of a pickle. So probably it's on the manager as well. I don't think he's up to the task, and probably just bringing them down a bit in terms of helping them become a unit that's hard to beat.
Well, I'm sure he would love potentially to do anything to sour the day for Chelsea. A draw or a win would be massive for this Leicester City team. I know this is the point in our previews where you'd like to throw a quick question to me to try to, much like Maresca's put to the question query zone by journalists. You have a couple, maybe a question or a couple questions for how we should approach this game and what my thoughts might be. So hit me with one.
So I think one is something that I think Maresca was trying maybe midweek. He was trying to find out what would work on the left wing. So he put Kiernan Dewsbury Hall there and essentially asked him to do a hybrid role of a left winger plus somebody who was playing as a left-sided eight. And maybe that was to try and figure out even a plan for Leicester, who do look vulnerable when that left winger comes in and becomes the extra man who receives in between lines. So if you're looking at that perspective, from just a left winger's perspective, somebody who is able to offer you something completely different to what we saw in that first half against Copenhagen, which was one of the worst halves I've seen Chelsea play in a long, long time. Who are you playing in that left wing? Are you playing Christopher Nkunku or are you going with Jadon Sancho?
Ooh, I mean, given that both Sancho and Nkunku came on as subs, and the way that Maresca has been lining up the team, I mean, it does feel like it's Pedro Neto in the top, Cole Palmer centrally behind him, and Nkunku on the left wing, and then you throw an other attacker on the right wing there. I mean that's probably how I think it's going to happen. I don't know if that's my preference at this given point, but I mean, to his credit, Nkunku had a decent cameo. With how he kind of like helped press down in the build up to one of the goals in the midweek, and so I'm just hopeful that we can, if we are truly moving on from him this summer, that we can get some good to maybe even one great performance out of him between now and the end of the season to help us solidify the two objectives, which is a top four, now top five finish, and a win the Conference League to add the final European trophy to Chelsea's cabinet.
Yeah, that's a sound answer, to be honest. I do feel like it's a toss-up. Could be either of those guys because both of them were rested. So you really don't know what's going to pop. Maybe one ends up on the right wing for all you know now that Gusto's not around. So
Sure.
um yeah, I think both could start. I don't know, but yeah, it would be great to have somebody like a Madueke here,
Oh
especially again
yeah.
like the game
Oof.
against Brentford. Mbeumo, for example, on that right side was very, very good. Was able to grab a really nice goal from inside the box where he hit the far corner with just the kind of way that Madueke does. But it's been an issue. The wings, in with the injury crisis, with Misha not being around, and just lack of options, and we really don't have any room to maneuver. So it is one that we have to endure, unfortunately, even with Pedro Neto sort of finding new lease of life at centre forward. We just don't have that penetrative wing option to offer, 1v1 threat to get us the goals. So teams are just too confident trying to be very narrow and compact against us and say, all right, do what you can from the wings because we know your fullbacks don't help and we know your wingers aren't good enough. So that's a big worry for me. But hopefully one of those guys, steps up. What are we thinking about predictions then?
Ooh, I mean, I am gonna have to predict a win. I think that this just has to be a win for Chelsea. If it's not a win for Chelsea, we are making lives extremely difficult for ourselves when we talk about qualification, considering we only have a 2 point lead over Newcastle currently and a 3 point lead over Bournemouth just behind us, Bournemouth and Brighton at this point. So tight table. You'd love to pick up a win here. And could we predict the elusive clean sheet? Am I just too emboldened by the fact that we got a clean sheet against Southampton to predict the
You're
elusive?
talking to somebody who predicted a hat trick from Cole Palmer, so just go wild, man.
Yeah, so I'm gonna say we get a clean sheet. I'm gonna also say another Cucurella goal contribution, because I just feel like he has a nose for it right now, and I'm super excited to see him have a double digit return year. I would love for this to be a game where he gets, I don't know, like crazy prediction is one, beyond crazy is two. Let's go beyond crazy. Two goal contributions from Mark Cucurella in this game as he plays that
Wow.
like super far forward role.
I don't think he's done that since he was like 21 years old. So, yeah, will be
Yeah, when
quite
when he was
interesting.
at Getafe, that would be the only time that he had that type of like a performance relative to it. I mean, he had six goal and assist contributions, but five of
Mhm.
those were assists in that. I mean, he's at seven currently this season for Chelsea. So
And he was a
already his
midfielder
best.
then, Dan. Yeah, he
I
was a
know.
midfielder then. So full credit to him, to be honest, to, bring the best out of his current campaign. So, I mean, two from Kukurea is quite a bold claim, but I'll give you the award for that, for just going after it. But what scoreline did you predict? I'm sorry.
I'm gonna go with a. I'm gonna go 3-0 clean
Oh,
sheet.
wow. Okay.
Kukurea 2 goal contributions. There we go.
Hmm.
That'll be my on the ledge. There probably are no fingertips left on that ledge holding on to it, but that's will be my on the ledge prediction for this one. What about you?
Nice. Yeah, I'll probably go a 3-0 as well. I think that sounds just about right with their scoring woes and everything. My bold prediction, I'm tempted to go for the Cole Palmer one again because I just think he's going to have not just like a one goal return to form, like three together, but probably switch it up and say like a set piece goal from like two set piece goals. Let's go two set piece goals from like corners. I think that's something ambitious that I'll go for, and hopefully we'll be able to pull that off.
Well, that gives you a couple of predictions. We had the opportunity to talk about what we think Maresca is going to do in this game, and then also gave you a full rundown of Leicester City's strengths and weaknesses heading into this fixture. But let us know in the comments what you think is going to happen in this game. Do you've got a on the ledge prediction you'd like to share with us? Don't forget, as always, subscribe, like on the videos. Tons more content coming your way. And if you're listening or watching to this before the game finishes, we will be live on YouTube after. Hopefully, Chelsea smash Leicester City this weekend. But until next time, you know what to do. Keep the blue flag flying high.